Bold predictions, and these are the ones that you believe in so much that you have submitted them to me. First up, this would be ratings. Whew. Imagine this. Mike said the SEC title game is a matchup of undefeated teams. Mike hails from Coral Springs, Florida, by the way. Hey, when's the last time this happened? Anybody out there? Undefeated versus undefeated SEC title game. It was 2009. It was Bama, Florida. Your boy was there, by the way. Does this have to be Georgia, Alabama this year? I think it does for this to happen, only because if it's undefeated versus undefeated, it can't be Tennessee because they play Georgia. Or it could be Tennessee, but if it's Tennessee, man, did they beat Georgia and Alabama? In which case it has to be Tennessee versus LSU. So quickly you see where it probably has to be Georgia, Bama, maybe Georgia, LSU, but Alabama's probably the only roster I see over there in the West capable of going undefeated. LSU's a really good team, but going undefeated, wire to wire, that's a really tough task for anyone. This would be like a national title game. This would be 1 versus 2, obviously, and it would, I'll tell you what it would do, with all this playoff and realignment talk happening right now, it would probably lead to a lot of people, myself maybe included, saying, why are you playing this game? You know, I don't like that question, but since you gave us the expanded playoff era, I would take the step of saying, if this were next year especially, why are you playing this game? If you just canceled your conference title game, you got the number 1 and number 2 teams in the country. And in 2009, by the way, you were in the BCS era. The SEC actively cost themselves the chance at having both of their teams in the national title game by having a conference title game. So anyway, I say all that to say this is an 8.75 on the boldness scale. It's pretty tough to pull off, maybe even a 9. Let's make it a 9 on the boldness scale. Next up, we're going to the Carolinas. Wilmington, North Carolina is where Blake lives. He says none of the Carolina schools will make the ACC title game. That means no Clemson. That means no NC State, no Wake Forest, no Duke. That's right. Duke is not making the ACC title game, according to Blake. And you would have no Wake. Did I mention all of them? Yeah, Clemson, North Carolina, Duke, NC State, Wake Forest. For those of you keeping track at home, that means the number 1, number 4, number 5, number 8, and number 9 odds teams are out of the picture. So what kind of leftovers are we looking at for the ACC title game? Could have Florida State, Louisville, Pitt, Miami. I'm going to stop there for obvious reasons. Yeah, it could happen. Clemson's won 7 of the past 8. The last time that we didn't have a Carolina school in the ACC title game was 2014. That was FSU versus, wait for it, Georgia Tech. This is very unlikely. This is a 9 for me, but there is a world that I see FSU in Louisville because Louisville has the most desirable schedule of anyone in the ACC. They don't play Florida State. Well, what if Florida State's just better than Clemson and beats them once in the regular season, and maybe Clemson drops another game and FSU is off to the ACC title game and Louisville wins 10 games on the strength of maybe just they execute well or maybe they execute against a soft schedule. Next up, I had to go all the way back to the early 90s to find out when the last time this happened was. Conference Commandos hit us up and said, Illinois at Iowa, November 18th. That will be a top 25 showdown. Well, that's a 9. That's a 9 on the boldness scale. Normally, that late in the year, you need to be 7-3. That's kind of what you need to have to be a top 25 team. Iowa, before this game, they got at Penn State, Michigan State, Purdue, at Wisconsin, Minnesota, Illinois. Illinois plays Toledo early. That's like a 7-point line. Don't overlook Toledo. And they play Penn State, at Purdue, Nebraska, at Maryland, Wisconsin, at Minnesota, Indiana. This has not happened since 1991. Illinois, Iowa, top 25 matchup has not happened since 1991. You got transfer portal quarterbacks facing off. You got Altmaier versus Cade McNamara. This is a 9 on the boldness scale. And lastly, but it's actually lastly and leastly, this is the least bold prediction of the night. Alan from Biloxi, Mississippi, says Utah loses 4 or more games with one of the toughest schedules in FBS. It's like a 7 for me on the boldness scale. Their over-under is 8.5. So I mean, even Vegas says, yeah, it's not all that bold. Cam Rising, the quarterback out there, has his status for week 1 uncertain right now. He's practicing, but he's limited. He's coming off a knee injury, and so we'll see if he's back to 100%. Here's why it's so important early. They play Florida in week 1 on a Thursday night, by the way. They go to Baylor the next week. They got UCLA week 4, and they got at Oregon State in week 5. So 4 of their first 5 games, all due respect to Weber State, 4 of their first 5 games are extremely losable. And guys, if they're not right at quarterback, they could lose all 4 of those. So it's not a prediction, certainly, but yeah, that's before they play at USC and play Oregon and play at Washington. This is very possible. Very possible. So, of course, they could win all of them. You know, there is that possibility too, but I'm going to put a 7 on that one. You're not giving me any more guarantee about health of the quarterback position. That's a 7.